Mm-hmm.
Good. There we go. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. People starting to join. Oh, 18 participants today. That's good. We had 19 signed up and 18 attended. I tell you what, you cannot predict what's going to happen with this. Sometimes you get about 10% people attend and other times 95.
It's our perfect pre-Christmas lightning talk.
This is it. This is it. People are excited, right? Hi, Helen, coming up on screen. Feel free to turn your cameras on and give us a wave and let us know that you're out there. And I'm going to see if I can turn off the waiting room so people can just come in and join. Okay, so just while we're waiting then, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Barry Cranford. I'm the founder of the London Java community, and we do a bunch of other stuff around here. So I also run a recruitment company called RecWorks, and RecWorks is essentially the company that runs the LJC and a lot of the events within these different communities. So today is officially an LJC event, but it's also very closely associated with another group, which is the Aspiring Speakers, and another one, Aspiring Women Speakers, so the women's chapter of that. So the whole point of today and this initiative is to try to help launch careers of new speakers, essentially, or that's the idea behind the group. So I don't know of today's speakers. I know we have at least one that's not a regular speaker, but generally we use these events as a way. Oh, two, good. We use this as a way to help people get started on the journey to conference speaking. Having run the LJC now for 14 years, we've seen so many people that are now Java champions and CEOs, CTOs, tech co-founders, and subject matter experts have given their first talks within the LJC and then have gone on to get into conferences and keynotes and have all the vast career benefits that come with that. And so we want to take what we've learned about how people get started and how they climb that ladder and get that through to an entire new generation of speakers. So the lightning talks is a bit of fun. Feel free to eat your lunch, do whatever you want to do alongside it. It's not meant to be taken too seriously. So it's just like I say, it's a bit of fun, bit of a lightweight way to help people get started and hopefully have some interesting talks along the way. I will say, if anybody is interested in giving a talk at a future one, this is the last one this year, but if anyone wants to talk next year, we run these every 2 weeks. So if this is your first one, or if you're not a member of the Aspiring Speakers or Aspiring Women Speakers group and you would like to be, we love having new speakers. Speak to Abby. Abby's the one with the thumbs and the waving. There she is. So speak to Abby and she can sort you out in the group and get things hooked up. But yeah, if any other questions as well, let myself know, let Abby know. You can use the chat function to do that. So without further ado then, our first speaker, Stephen Powell. Stephen, if you're ready.
Hello, everyone. So this is not my first, I think it's about my 4th or 5th lightning or not lightning talk. This is a very, very casual and non-scripted talk about my first year in software development. And just to check, can everyone see that full screen? Excellent. So as I say, this is very, very casual. And actually, in a way, there's one big question, which is the last question, which I want. It's not even a question, it's just a statement. These are all just a bit of statements, and there's going to be nothing groundbreaking here. This is going to be things that I think that most people who have coded or worked in software development are going to understand. There's just a few of the things which I found funny or slightly sad or something, things that I want to change. So without further ado, just a little bit of an introduction to me. As I am a software developer, as we just said. I work as a contract worker for Foundry 4. I realise it's quite unusual for your first job to be a contractor, but I decided to jump right in there, sink and swim, and I've still got a job, so I guess I'm just about swimming. And I make public sector websites. However, I just haven't been a software dev for just 1 year. I have been coding for 15 years, and I started at university, which was music technology, quite computer and language heavy, which I really enjoyed. And then I got into writing prototype software for musicians in the audio industry. Well, I just said that, haven't I? There we go. And yes, started working with audio-specific languages, SuperCollider, Max MSP, and then I went on to teach myself C++, and now I work mainly with JavaScript, the MERN stack, or to be specific, now I don't really work with React, I work with an old technology called Nunjugs, which is used, it's a HTML templating language, which is used for government websites. So my first issue is Git. Git is wonderful. I really don't know how anyone did without it. It makes life a lot easier and sharing. However, I swear it is genuinely still trying to kill you. I know people that have been using Git practically since the dawn of time, and it still trips them up. Git stash is the most dangerous thing in the world. I swear it swaps between repos, it drops things when it's not supposed to. So a little lesson, if you get as good as Git as you can, and it will still try and kill you, but it makes life a lot easier if you do. My second, I always knew that software development wasn't exact science, but I was absolutely not prepared for how unreasonable, how illogical, and how rough and ready a huge amount of software development actually is. When I thought of it as computer science. Maybe I thought too much of it, like making computer chips in the laboratory, but what I'm doing, websites, people do everything differently. There's no standardization. People can do the same thing so differently that the code is practically unreadable from person to person. You actually have to sit there scratching your head, and I just have no idea why. Why is there such a lack of standardization? I think I know some of the answers to that, but still, I am still totally amazed on a daily basis how different things are, not just from repo to repo or project to project, but just from file to file. It really is an amazing thing. And testing, everyone tests things in different ways. Really surprises me still to this day, and is definitely a very different thing to what I considered it was like in the first place. My second one, another true amazement, is how little comparatively of my job is actually coding. I would say that actually less than half is coding. The rest is meetings, the dreaded meetings. The rest is helping people, teaching, getting out of sticky situations, finding out requirements, managing expectations, and doing all kinds of stuff around it. So my experience before, which was just writing my own code or writing code specific for one person or for a brief, is very, very different from the actual job. And one question I have about that I do wonder is, would it be more productive if other people, business analysts, people with similar roles, just did their very best to prepare things for coders as best they can? Or is it a good thing that coders actually get more integrated and more interested in the business needs and the client's needs? I think that depends very much on the developer, the role that they play. But I do think it is a very interesting question. Non-coding decision makers need to understand some stuff much better. And I'm guessing everyone who's a coder probably agrees with this. And there's lots of nuances to how things that I feel that they should know. And this isn't just because there's like, oh, they don't understand me. I am a coder, I know this better. I'm not talking about that I'm having a bit of a flounce. What I'm saying is that it would improve their own projects, the speed and the budget in their coming up, if they invested a bit of a time understanding some concepts that are very relevant to software development. And there's lots of these, but three I think are particularly important are velocity. If you tell coders to stop doing something for 2 months and then go back to it, you are going to lose at least 30% of the time it takes to do that. Or to be more exact, you're going to increase the time it takes to do that. I'm not quite sure if it's the process of software developing or the actual character of software developers, but we are generally not particularly good context switchers. You have to really think about things. And when someone says, okay, we're going to take you out of that, you've got to wrap this up, you've got to put your tickets and your jobs into a state of hibernation and then come back to it at a later time, that just makes life very, very difficult. So please, anyone who's organizing teams of coders, please understand that if we get a task, it is really in everyone's interest to let us finish that task. The second one, the drag of context switching, and I've really talked about this in the last one, which was velocity, it is very hard to move between things, especially when you've got things fresh in your mind. And I suppose that goes on to another thing I find interesting about software development. I thought that you learn software development and you learned and learned and learned as time goes by, but the reality is that there is so much stuff that you have to know that you actually don't know it all the time. You actually forget stuff. And I think that the biggest experience factor in being a software developer, seeing similar things so many times that you actually just relearn it quicker. It's not that you particularly remember it or that you've instantly got it at the forefront of your brain. You just get better at going back to it, I think. The cumulative effects of technical debt. I can see someone grinning in agreement and despair at the same time on my screen. I spoke to one of my veteran colleagues recently about when we were going to get onto this technical debt, or to be more exact, the fact that shoring up the old project and fixing things on the old project will be hugely beneficial for the next stage of the project because we will have better templates and better ways of working to reference. And he just said, oh no, that doesn't happen. What do you mean it doesn't happen? And the crux of it was, our job, especially as contractors, is to come in, do something as quickly as possible, and then leave. And that was it. And I genuinely am in amazement about the short-termism of clients and people who are requiring products, that they don't seem to understand that the things that they often are valuing, which is delivery, speed, quality, are massively depreciated when you do not address technical debt. And it absolutely astonishes me constantly how often this rule or this concept is just utterly misunderstood. And here's my last one. I do apologize that I'm going to end this on a slightly somber note, but this is something that really genuinely upsets me sometimes because it affects the lives and the working habits of people so much. Some developers are really bad at asking for help, and I do not understand why, because you have to all the time. The aforementioned fact that you don't remember things all the time, that there's so many different ways of doing everything, but they're really bad. I've noticed several developers just in my short time of being here delay their tickets hugely, only to actually get really upset and come to another person who's been working on it after a week of bashing their heads against the brick wall. And they're really apologetic and they're really upset by this. And it's vaguely traumatizing. It doesn't do anyone any help. It doesn't do the project any good, it doesn't do your co-workers any help, and it certainly doesn't do you any good. I've seen people who are contractors get really stressed about actually having their job the next day because they don't understand how to do something. And often or not, you just have to remind them, you do realize that you haven't known what to do at least 10,000 times in the past, and they go, oh, yes, okay, actually not knowing is okay. Can you help me? Maybe. I'm not very good at this either, but we'll work together and it's okay. And I really would like to know, what about software development is so conducive to people not asking for help? And I just really don't know why. And it makes me sad on a daily basis. And one thing I am really glad is very, very slowly, we're changing our culture to one of integrating with teams, of DevOps culture, of younger people, when they're learning in a more team-based and collaborative way. And I see that, and slowly the tide is changing, that people are just thinking that asking for help is more of a default. You work on something, you bash your head against it for half an hour, and then you go, okay, someone probably knows this better than me. It's at the forefront of someone's mind better than me. So yes, this saddens me. And is something that sticks with me quite a lot as someone who spent their first year at development. And I'm really glad that I've had a history of different types of job, and especially being a teacher where you have classrooms of kids, and if they don't know, they stick their hand up. And I really, really think that as developers, we need to be a bit more like that. And I think that there is I can't think of the word doesn't come to my house, but there is a bit of an issue, a cultural problem with asking for help. I forget the right word for it, but yeah. So that is my slightly off the cuff conversational opinion about some of the odd issues of my first year in software development. Thank you everyone for listening to my rant.
Brilliant, thanks, Stephen. I think what really stuck out for me, or something that resonated, was when you said about how little as a percentage is actually coding as a software developer. Certainly as an outsider, I think the impression is, well, that's what you do, 7 days a week or 5 days a week in 9 to 5. That's what you do. You code, right? You write code. But it amazed me when I heard just how little time was actually spent on that. So. But yeah, lots of interesting things there. We did go a bit over, but does anyone have any questions at all for Stephen?
Could it be because that when people don't ask questions or developers don't ask questions, because that generally, culture there is that it's generally expected that if you can solve if their developers can solve their own problems, they are seen as good developers. But on the contrary, developers who often ask questions because they don't know or they seek clarity, then they are often seen as not so good of a developer.
I think it can be. There is that culture. I don't know whether a lot of software developers see themselves as oracles of information, or they want to be seen as oracles of information or ability. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I ask for help all the time. I don't think anyone has told me that I'm an utter pest yet. I do think you get some developers who are slightly more grumpy and curt about things than others, but generally people are very willing to help. I'm very willing to help. Yeah. I think I actually prefer helping other people with their coding problems more than I enjoy coding myself.
Right.
So yes, but you're right. The culture does need to change, and I do think it is.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Danny. Okay, so on to the next one then. Danny, as you're currently talking, I think you're next in line. So are you all set? Happy to share your screen, I think?
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. So this is, hi everyone, I'm Danny. Let's see, let's get started. Yeah, this is actually my first talk, and again, not scripted, so bear with me. I usually have them scripted to organize my train of thoughts, and also to make sure that I don't mess up. The topic I'm going to talk about is really, really brief. Today is something that most of us already know. The title itself sounds like really grandiose, secure yourself on the web, but really it's just focusing on one key area, which are the things that you can actually do to secure yourself, really. And it is, I'm talking about passwords, really. So password is what every one of us have already. Something is not new. But what I do find is that people tend to reuse their password over and over again. And this is a big no-no, really, because we're in the age of digital transformation where all websites are, they want to know something about you. So much so that every website you go or to buy, to interact, to purchase something, to I don't know, for anything, they want to know a bit of your information, and which means you have to go and create an account, and an account username, passwords, and your email, everything. If you look back in the number of passwords that you created, it's a really long list. And if you take a look at, if you've been repeating a password or repeated use of a password, you will see that that list is just all the same. And it's very, very risky in terms of cybersecurity. If one website gets, if you're hacked into and someone has managed to break into your account, your password, and they figure that is a very simple one, there's a high chance that your other accounts also have the same password. So yeah, it's the way I see it as a password is like having the main the key to your main door really to your house. There's only one key and there's only one unique key, and you use that to enter your main door, and then you have everything. You have access to everything within your own home. As I said, if you reuse a password, a compromise of a single website can lead to compromise of all your accounts, and you don't want that. And the point I'm trying to make here is that you're not meant to remember all your passwords. I have helped a number of people. It really saddened me a lot to hear their stories, to see that one of them came to me with showing me an email saying that their password has been compromised and there have been some activities on the dark web. So oftentimes it's going to be like a blackmail, extortions, and all that. Some of them are scams, and some of them are not scams. They can be real, but you don't want to go through them. I've seen that people have gone through this, and it's really, really painful because you don't know what they have uncovered, right? So whatever it is that you have, with regards to your password, please protect it. How you can protect it, I will tell you in a bit more details later. So when I talk about main key to your main door, we're talking about your primary password. So have at least 2 primary passwords to remember. More than 4 will be too many. Why 2 at least? Because you need your main passwords to access your computer at home, and maybe another one or another set for your work computer, and another one perhaps for other things that you can use, But you have to start with a very simple passphrase that means something to you. Preferably something that you have emotional ties to it. All right. You can pick a simple one to start with. Have a passphrase of at least 3 syllables. Like for example, I listed out here: United States, 3 syllables. Family or holiday, hello girls or hello boys, amigos, bloody pandemic, potato hate. What you can do is to transform the password, your passphrase, and in the syllabic order. All right, so a family becomes LYMIFA, and if you apply this rule all the time, you will think of that you have chosen your word family, but you transform the order, rearrange the syllables to the third syllables to the first and the other, and you will have created a new passphrase all on its own, and it's something that you can remember. All right. Once you're using this already over and over again on your one account, you can then continue to expand it a little bit by adding another passphrase or some numbers or syllables or symbols. Sorry. So this is one step, one of the basic steps to create a meaningful password to yourself that is secure and complex that you can remember. How you can do it and what to use as primary passwords. You can pick an object at your desk, and if you don't already have one, like a masking tape, you can attribute like this one, lonely masking tape. You can apply your rules and how you want to rearrange your passphrase. or your car registration, or your first line or second line of address, or your game handle if you play games, or your one-word aspiration. Like mine is to climb the Mount Kilimanjaro. So you can just obfuscate it to become like what we have here. But again, the point here is that apply your own rules and stick to the rule. Your rules should not change over a long period of time until it's time for you to refresh it. So that way you will always have you can always recall your password that you have transformed. All right. Like I said, it will be helpful if your choice is emotionally tied to that, because emotional memory carries along has a longer time for you to remember better, rather than from your recalling something from your head. Other patterns that you can employ when choosing a password is, like, for example, on the lines, looking at a keyboard. On the standard QWERTY keyboard, you can use lines, but lines, I mean how you place your finger on the keyboard is QWERTY or ASFD. Those are single lines. That's on your left hand. You can apply the same line. This is the horizontal line on your right hand as well, which is POIU. If you want to transform it using case, uppercase, or all uppercase or mixed cases, you can do that as well. But remember, once you have picked your rules, stick to it, so that you're always, again, able to reproduce your own passwords. Shapes is another one. We remember shapes better than we remember passwords. So you got to think of something that you can to generate a password. For example, if you pick the shape of square, for example, if you look at the keyboard, think of the square here refers to 4 keys. So if you look at 9, 0, and OP, the position of them, that is basically a shape of a square. That's on your right-hand side. And the middle of the keyboard is 5, 6, T and Y. And your left hand is 12, Q and W, 1, 2, Q, W. And you can mix this up. If you want to go first line first of the square, and then second line, or you can go diagonal, or you can go right to left. So whatever you choose, you can generate your own password that you can remember. But once, again, my point here, and I want to stress over and over again, is that once you have whatever rules you have picked, stick to it. All right. For numbers, you can imagine on your keypad, on your keyboard, the shape of how the number 7 is written. It goes from left to right and then diagonal downwards. So that pattern itself will yield you 7, 8, 9, 6, 2, 0 on the keyboard. Or if you're on your dial pad on the smartphone, that will give you 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 0. Check marks is another shape. It's like a tick. That on the keyboard, it will give you 41, 59. On the dial pad, 4753. Now, it's if you think about it, you can disagree with me later and tell me about it right now. Your reason? If you think about it, I personally don't usually remember the individual numbers. It's the combinations itself. For example, 4, 1, 5, 9. But I do remember if I tell myself, oh, my passphrase or the shape that to enter my password is actually a check mark. My fingers will just run through it, the check mark, and it will give me that. It's just that one object to remember that will give me those combination. The uppercase letter, for example, the letter T will give me 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 0. Right? I don't have to remember the 6 digits, but I just have to remember one uppercase letter on the keypad, for example. So this goes easier on your memory. You don't have to remember a huge number of combinations, but they are only reduced to a few shapes or patterns or lines. So here's like, what did I say? Only one pattern to remember, which will intuitively reproduce your secrets, really. Yeah. So all that is you can pick after you pick that your password. You should really, and I strongly encourage you to use a password manager. This really takes off the pressure of memorizing your login. This is spelled double G, not login details. Yeah, so I'm the big advocate of one password to rule them all. And this is employed with your primary password. You must always generate complex passwords of at least 12 characters in length, because like I said earlier, you're not meant to remember all your passwords. A password manager with your primary password, the main key to enter it, your vault. And then you can copy and paste your passwords into wherever you need them to be. All right. And password managers also give you dark web monitoring. Right. It tracks changes of your passwords over time, and reminds you of the accounts that you've only used once. If you go to a website, you purchase something, that one purchase, and then you don't interact with the website anymore, then it can remind you. You can just delete it or delete the account. These are the things that we don't usually keep track of sometimes. So, and then with one-time password combinations like a salt and pepper as well, it does have that feature. So your vault are with you all the time. Why password managers are a wonderful thing is that they go with you wherever you go, on your phone, on your web browsers, and they are fairly secure, if I can say, and also they are hosted on the cloud. Do not ever store your password on your browser, because if you decide to change browser, or if your browser has been compromised, then that'll be it. That's not something that you want to deal with. I'm also advocating to pay for the password managers if you can, because it saves you a lot of troubles and gives you a lot more convenience than. And I think it's, well, I want to say it's worth your money, really. So yeah, I would. That's what I want to say today.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Danny. And I think there's been some comments there as well for password managers. Bitwarden, that's one. Did anyone have any questions for Danny, or anything that he covered there at all?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Just because I'm a not very techie person. I have Google accounts. I have a couple of Google accounts, and obviously every time I log into a website, Google suggests a strong password for me and then remembers it so that I don't even have to think about it. But from what you've just said, am I right in thinking that that's maybe not such a good idea for me to do?
So the question here that I have been through this ropes of using Google password managers. So there has been a time where I've been just using Chrome browser, and I've been using that as well, to a point where, and you will see it's just a matter of time where people will say stop using Google Chrome because Chrome has become very unstable, or there are a lot of security issues discovered. Even when that time comes, and then you see that piece of news, and then you'll be like, oh, I need to start to use another browser, like Firefox, for example. But then you'll be like, oh, all my passwords are in that browser. How are you going to migrate them over? There's no straightforward way to do that. So here, which is why I'm saying that using a standalone, sorry, a separate entity, a provider that specialize in just keeping a password managers. You can bring that with you. You can integrate that with you anywhere, anytime, and they are hosted in cloud. I think they are a cloud solution as well, a cloud product, and you don't have to worry about security and integration. It comes with you wherever. It can store your card details as well, which browsers couldn't. It can track dark web, monitor dark web activities for your password and accounts, which Google Chrome does not, or even browsers do not do that. So yeah, I would suggest you do, if you're curious about it after this, do a 7-day trial and see how it goes.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks, Danny. Joel, got your hand up as well. Did you have a question there?
Yes. Some people might say that if I have one master password, which has access to my password manager, that's the same as having a key to the front door of all the other rooms, because then if you have that password, you can access all the others. So how is that different from having one very strong password for all the sites?
Your master password is never shared or is never used anywhere else except to your password manager vault, right? And it is strongly discouraged for you to share your master password with anybody else except your spouse. Or maybe that's another question, another topic for. but yes, it's not the same because the basic methods that have shown you how to secure yourself using a very complex password as your primary password / master password. That should be enough. If there's anything compromised at all, which I highly doubt, you can then change your master password again, and you will be fine.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Danny. Okay, brilliant. So next one
quick note. Whatever you've decided on your master password, always check out on the website. Search for your complexity for all your passwords, see how many years or how many billions of years will it take to crack, or maybe even a microsecond. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bro, thanks very much, Danny. Okay, next we have Luis. Luis, are you ready?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just gonna share my screen. Wait a minute. Is everyone seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, hello everyone, my name is Luis. I am a Brazilian junior software developer, and the title of my talk today is "The Future is Serverless." And I'm so glad to be here with all of you. And okay, let's go. As the times goes by, more people are starting to learning programming languages and building things. And as a starter, you find a lot of courses and tutorials that teach you how to use technology to build products and services. And from a simple hello world to a robust and complete API, you can build everything you want. And but when it comes to deploy what was built, it comes up a lot of questions about the possibilities to make this API ready to be used. And because when you are in the development process, everything is settled up on localhost, and there it's fast, it's easy to set up, and the most important, it's free. But it's totally different when it goes to a production environment. And that was my situation when I started. Until that moment, I've heard stories of experienced developers of deployment processes that were a real nightmare. And suddenly I faced a challenge of setup an environment, installing, running, monitoring, updating, and the worst, there was billing. And there I realized that even when my API was not being used, I was being billed, and that gave me a lot of headaches. And to overcome this, I started searching for alternatives to make this process less painful. And I found platforms like Heroku, OpenShift, and DigitalOcean. And these platforms provided me an easy way to deploy my code. But in these platforms, you still have to specify how much resources your application will need. And though it's possible to scale the application up or down, but you need to do it manually. And besides that, these platforms are designed to long-running applications, which affects how the service is built. And again, when the application is running, it's being built. So even when it's not being used. So when I started working at the company I'm currently working, I was introduced to serverless. And the first question I made about it was, wait, serverless? Literally, it was a little bit, I was a little bit confused because I didn't know how how it's supposed to work. But when I discovered what he really was, it was like until that moment I was blind and then I was healed. But okay, what really is serverless? And the short definition that I most like about serverless is the Red Hat's definition. That is, serverless is a cloud-native development model that allows developers to build and run applications without having to manage servers. So it's not that there are no servers, but the serverless architecture shifts the responsibility for running, managing, and provisioning the environment from the user to the cloud provider entirely. So while the developer can focus only on writing code. And how does it work? Basically, in the serverless architecture, you first need to write the code which is responsible for one specific function, which is the function as a service rules. One function needs to provide one solution, one thing, and after you will define the event which will trigger the cloud provider to execute the function. And one of the most common events, it's the HTTP events. And when the event is triggered, the cloud provider first checks if an instance of the function is already running, and if not, it starts a new one for the function. So, and after that, the application returns the result to the client. And after some time, if there have been no requests for the function, the cloud provider releases the resource. So the developer just needs to focus on writing code and package it to deploy. And all the routing work of provisioning, maintaining, and scaling the server infrastructure is up to the cloud provider. And so what are its benefits? The first one that is very clear, because all of this thing of deployment, it will be up to the cloud provider. So you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to worry about scaling. You don't need to set up the environment. It's everything up to the cloud provider. The second one is that it's cost effective, because once you opt for a serverless architecture, you don't need to pay for idle resources, which saves you a lot of money. So if you are not using that resource, you will not be paying for that. So, and the third one is it's the perfect fit for event-driven applications. Because when you need to do just one simple thing, the serverless architecture is the perfect fit for it. Okay, and as the serverless architecture is not a silver bullet, there are cons. And yes, there are cons. There are a lot of benefits and there are a lot of cons, but the two that I think it's most important to talk about. And the first one is that it's not that efficient to long-running applications. And so as every architecture, you need to know how you're going to use that to that architecture. So for long-run application, the serverless is not so recommended. And the second one is the cold start, because it does take some time for a scalable serverless platform to handle the first request by your function. So the function will need to initialize internal resources in order to execute that function. So when you do it for the first time, you will take a little bit of time, but not that much time. And that's it. But this thing, it's a thing that the community is being solving. And so it's every month and every year you take less time to do the cold starts, because there are a lot of tools and frameworks. There it is a serverless framework, which is so easy for you to set up things there. And with all of this, it became easier to the developers to do their main work and be more productive at their work. And the developer can just do what is important, just focus on the code, on the logic, and on how everything is going to work. And all of this deployment stuff and infrastructure stuff, it's up to the cloud provider. And it makes all of this process more accessible to developers, mainly the starters. And that's why I really believe that I know that there's a lot of monolith applications, but the serverless is going to be more used as the time goes by. So I think that the future is it's turning to be a serverless future, because the people are changing their way of build applications. They are just starting to think in a microservice way, and that's why I think that the future is going to be more serverless. And that's it. That's what I want to talk. And thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll be so glad to answer.
Fantastic. Yeah, I appreciate that, Lewis. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to just unmute your microphone and jump right in. And Stephen, yeah.
Hello there. Thank you very much for your talk, Lewis. I'm really interested in service applications. I'm very much like you. I do think that it is in the future. I'm reading a book on microservices, which involves that heavily at the moment. In your opinion, though, what do you think is the timeline for getting away from the problems of queuing in serverless architecture? So a lot of the problems which have come up are to do with when you have a long chain of serverless applications and one fails, where does that failed serverless function report to? Does it report to the previous function? Does it report to something at the beginning of the chain? And the problem is when you get things like that, it all becomes very all of the service, all the applications, the functions become very reliant on each other, so that the decoupling, which is a great part of serverless functions, then becomes a bit moot. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think I understood the question, sorry, but I think that you're talking about when one function doesn't work and how it affects the others. It's that. I think that's it. That's why I said about how do you think about your application? Not every application it really needs to be applied with a serverless architecture, and that's why it needs to. One of the cons that I didn't say here is that it takes the application a little bit complex, because you need to think a lot about how we're going to build this, and you will need to think about, okay, if this get wrong, if this function doesn't work, how I'm going to overcome all this. And I think that this is a thing that the people are coming up with solutions. The community is always contributing with open source and with tools that will help us to handle with all of this. And the serverless, though it's not that old, but it's a little bit recent feature that people are discovering and are starting to applying on their companies. So as it's not that old, the serverless architecture is in a progress, and I think that we're going to have even more tools and frameworks that will help us to handle with all of these things.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. Thanks, Stephen. Okay, brilliant. So on to our final talk of the day then. Tsarlin, are you there? Are you able to share your screen? Yeah, you're there. Can you see your
yes.
thing there? You good? You ready to go?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just fix the screen. Okay. Share. Okay, can you see my slide? Okay. Okay, I haven't actually really slide on me. Okay, so you can see my slide, yeah? So first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to do this talk. I've never done anything like this in the tech space, at least. So, yeah, I want to talk about something that happened to me recently. Well, I wouldn't say recently, like at least this year, like early this year. So my very first P0 bug experience. So before I dive into this, just a quick introduction who I am. I'm Tsarlin Domingo. I'm a full stack engineer at Bruiser. What we do at Bruiser, we're building a B2B marketplace for the seafood industry. So we call it fish tech. And it's very exciting space to be building tech on it because there's a lot of room for innovation in this industry because prior to our company, most trading still happens on a pen and paper style calling, and lots of middlemen in between. So it's a really exciting space to be building tech upon. So I work with Laravel on the server side and React and TypeScript on the front end. And I consider myself a lifelong learner. As early as, I don't know, 10 years old, I taught myself how to play musical instruments and stuff. And I think it plays well as it's a good trait for being a developer and engineer because you always need to find yourself like really learning all the time because the tech space is just growing very rapidly and you cannot afford not to learn on a daily basis or at least as a lifestyle, So you can get in touch. That's my email and my LinkedIn. And so let's dive into the topic. So P0 bugs as an opportunity. So what is a P0? So in product, there is a way to prioritize certain bugs from P0, P1, P2, P3, P4. P0 is basically, it's a super critical issue that disrupts the system. It could be an outage or just basically your application is unusable. In our case, what happened was that basically it was a performance issue that the page wouldn't load and buyers were not able to buy, suppliers were not able to publish their offers for the day, which is like, if you can imagine, it's like super critical. So just to be a bit light on this. So what was happening? So what happened is that, so there was a bug. So there was a price discrepancy. We have two front ends. One was the actual marketplace where suppliers and buyers log in and do their trading. And another is a back office used by our commercial team. So there was a price discrepancy. So the buyer was seeing a certain price and then the sales team, we call them ambassadors, were seeing a different price. So the ticket was free in the Jira board. I took it, wrote the code. I said, oh, this doesn't make sense. The calculation of the final price is being done on the front end. This is a sensitive information. It should come from the server, and the front end should just be displaying the information, not doing the calculation. So I thought, okay, I'll do the query, include that query into that. And then all tests pass, unit tests pass, feature tests pass. It went into QA in the testing column. QA passed it. Okay, all good. Let's deploy. It was a Friday afternoon, and the Saturday morning was like just absolute chaos. Like automation bugs, Slack channels like bombarding us, like timeouts and stuff. So at that time, it was me and the CTO. We tried to fix it. Like, okay, let's try to fix it. We were working almost the whole day until Monday. The bug was still there. So long story short, come Monday, the whole team, the whole engineering team had to stop what was on the lineup for that sprint, and we just worked on it. So that was me. Literally, the whole day from Saturday morning until Monday, I was like, oh my God. The consequences was like, yeah, we really lost a bit of revenue that day. So I was like feeling really down, I was like, and I was like, the doubts were coming in. My morale was very down. It's because, oh, it was my fault. I caused that bug and stuff. So the reason why I'm sharing this is that I wish that somebody had told me these things prior to experiencing, and I hope that it would help someone. So some words of advice. So first is that it happens. P0 outage, we know, like even Google sometimes has it, like Facebook recently, or like even the biggest companies have outage. It happens from time to time. If it's a weekly thing, like there's something fundamentally wrong about your architecture, maybe you should check it out. But from time to time, it's normal. Yeah, it happens. So, but when it happens, what's important is what you do when it happens. So first, I would say is don't panic. It might be difficult to not do this, but try your best to not panic, because the moment you panic, you lose your ability to think what needs to be done. And you become all over the place and you don't know what to do. But if you try to keep your composure and just be calm, you're able to like see clearly what needs to be done. Second is blame never helps, regardless if you're blaming yourself or someone else. You know, at the time, and I have to say, I have a great team. I work with a great team, and I'm so thankful for them. But nobody was blaming at the time. No one was saying, it was you. No one was saying that. But it was in my own head, you know, the voices in my own head are saying, it was you. But like I said, it doesn't help. It just brings your morale down and it stops you from taking action. So, and then another advice that I would say is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Basically, these bugs, as the reason why I told this as an opportunity, that's my title, is because if you stop blaming and you look at the issue, why it happened, you can get really a lot of information from this. It can really improve you as a developer, as an engineer, the way you code, the way you do everything in the workflow, the way you operate as a team, which is what I will be discussing next. So, first what we did was, what we realized was that we should always have a quick and easy way to roll back. So I think that the first mistake what we did was Friday morning, we tried to fix, instead of like, oh, we can just roll back to the most recent release state, most stable release state, and job done, that we can still fix it, but without the pressure behind our backs that all sales are not happening. And then another important thing is that we really realized the importance of increasing the test coverage, especially for the critical paths. Another important thing that we learned here is to have a standard protocol for when things like this happens. So we documented everything. So we came up, this is a screenshot of we use Notion for documentation. So this is an example of the incident response process we came up with. We'll have an incident room. And then it's also important to regularly update different parts of the team in the company that are affected. So every 30 minutes, we tell them what happened. Okay, this is what we are doing this is, for example, one member of the team is doing this aspect, and then another team is doing another aspect. And then once you fix it, whether you decide to roll back or you think it's a quick fix, you do a post-mortem action. And then you come up with things how to prevent it in the future again. So again, this is not the post-mortem. I'm not sure with other companies, but sometimes it can be like a post-mortem to find who's to blame. Like I said, blame doesn't help, but the post-mortem is there to improve everyone as a team. And then another thing that I really think was like really happened to our company in our team was that it was a great opportunity to build relationship and trust with each other. So it really allowed us to, like when crisis like this happened, it really allowed us to rely on each other's strengths okay, one is really good at Laravel, he's really like an expert that he will look into this, and one is really an expert at React that she can look into this. And it was like, it was like really great dynamic. And it was, I think the experience, even beyond work, really allowed us to build just like each other more and just trust each other more. So it was like an opportunity to have a good company culture, like build that culture as a team and as a company. So that's all. I tried to be quick. I'm not sure if I'm over time. So I just want to leave with this quote. So, and it's related to seafood. That's why we all like it. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. So basically, if you were always, you are not encountering issues in your work or in the code, you'll never know how strong or how good or how robust your application is. It's good from time to time to experience these things so that it can make you stronger. So yeah, that's my message.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tsarlin. That was great. Fish tech, did you say?
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
fish tech.
Fish tech. Brilliant. You won't forget that quickly, will you?
Yeah.
Okay. I know we're over time. Sorry, guys, we've run a little bit over. But does anyone have any questions at all for Tsarlin on that talk? Irene, yes. So you've unmuted there.
Yes, I had a problem with my sound earlier. I've actually got a comment on the initial talk with Stephen. I just wondered if he was still online to answer. Stephen Powell?
I am.
Yeah, I just wondered some of the problems that you encountered, and I think we've all encountered them. Do you see that the agile development process would actually help in a lot of those times? Because you're bringing, from the start, you're bringing stakeholders, product owners, the tech team together throughout the whole process so they can all be aware of it. And also the sprint, the Kanbans, the sort of regular reporting would allow, say, the Scrum Master, the project lead, whatever you want to call them, that person should therefore be able to see bottlenecks and use those as opportunities for people to teach each other in a team. And it's really just changing the whole terminology and the whole collaboration effort that's going on. What's your view on that, Stephen?
I would offer a very simple and possibly ineducated response, but I will offer it bluntly anyway. We do run Agile. We were running Kanban. We're now running Scrum, and it has its flaws. But I don't think the flaw is that of Agile. Basically, and I'm not saying that this actually applies to my project, because just like any other one, there's good and bad things about it. But I don't think you can polish a turd. If something's bad, I think if you've got problems with it and you apply Agile to it, I don't think that makes it any better. I think that
depends what your problems are in the first stage. Then
yeah, I think that Agile can address some issues, but I don't think that it automatically makes things better. In fact, I think that sometimes you can apply different methodologies and it just makes things more complicated or adds more meetings. I've been in the situation where there was just a bunch of work that needed to get done. It was about 2 months worth of work and it just needed to be done. We knew what to do. We knew what the scope was. We knew what the product was. And for instance, in that example, I don't think applying Scrum would have helped. It was just 3 guys and they just did it. And I think that if you introduced anything complicated on top of that, it would have just taken up more time. But then again, sometimes I think it can improve it. But I don't think that it's, I think that it's useful when it's applied well for the right reasons. But as I say, I don't have that much experience with it. But that's what I feel.
I've went through various different projects in my career, and I feel when it's used properly, it can really bring out the problems early on in a project. And you talked about the non-code decision makers trying to understand velocity, understand the drag of context switching. And I think if that's known up front and discussed on a regular basis, decisions can be made just by pulling everyone together and seeing. But yeah, I take your point. If you've got a project that wants to wait the 3 months, but I like the regular, personally, the projects I've been involved with, I've liked the regular feedback, and we can change direction. We make sure our stakeholders, product owners are upfront with what's going on and clear. So there's no shocks at the end. I just thought it would maybe help in some of the problems that you mentioned.
No, you're absolutely right. And I've experienced good and bad in my short time. I think what the main problem is when you get then is that you can have all the agile, and this is not me hating on agile, and it sounds like your processes are really good. But when people say that they're going to do one thing, and they say, oh yes, this, that, and the other, and then they make actions which go against what they appear to want, then that causes difficulties. So I think that clients, even when you communicate to them really, really well, will still make short-termism like decisions, even when it goes completely against what they actually want to achieve. And that's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of my career, we'd have sort of our sprints were maybe 3 or 6 months long. They weren't even called sprints at the time. But having the regular sprints, it allows that tech lead, that project lead, whatever you want to call them, to review and see where there are bottlenecks also, and use that as a learning opportunity. You mentioned that people are frightened to say if they've got a problem, etc. And I've seen that in my career as well. But if people are more collaborative, you use that project lead uses that as an opportunity to pull in someone else and encourage more than one person to know about the area in the project. That also lends well to people being upfront and saying, learning to raise their hand and say, I've got a problem with something, I need some help. It's just changing that whole, the terminology, the atmosphere in the team as well. But thank you for your talk. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. And Tsarlin as well, thank you for your talk just at the end there as well. Irene, thanks for the comment, and Steve for answering. Thank you for people to tune in. This is our last one of the year. As I said, if you have been watching this and you think, oh, that looks fun, I'll have a go at that. Please do. We always like to see new speakers come along. If you like the presentations that you've had, let people know. It's always good. It's so hard when you first get started as a speaker. It's sort of like throwing something over a fence to a load of people the other side, and you sit there on the other side and you think, well, did they like it? How did that go down? Generally most people think, did I look nervous or things like that? And just feedback is crucial. So if you really enjoyed or got anything out of any talk in particular, look people up on LinkedIn, just let them know. It's always really useful. But I think that's it from me. So thank you again to our speakers. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see hopefully in the new year.
Yeah.
See you guys. Have a good break.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Happy New Year.